I'm sitting here with Rabbi Chaim Ozer Chait, the Rosh Hashiva of Yeshivat Migdal HaTorah in Modi'in, and the Musmach of Yavosha Feinstein, and we'll be discussing Har Habayit. What motivated you to get involved in Har Habayit?
Actually, I was raised in a fairly strong Haredi background atmosphere. And growing up, we were just told by Rebbeim, it's prohibited to go up. And I accepted that and moved along. And then there was the event with Rav Yehuda Glick, and he went to speak one time in Telstone. I went with my son to hear him speak. And during his speech, he explained his background, and he also heard growing up that it was prohibited. And he decided to look into it. And he sees it's absolutely not true. He sees there's some halachas pertaining to Har Habayit. Well, afterwards, I said to my son, that's the way I was taught by my Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. This is how I learned also by Soloveitchik. You have a question, you look into it. So we started looking into it. We started going through the halachos. And I must say, shocking. I couldn't believe what I'm reading straight from the Rambam, from the Gemaras, from everything, the mitzvahs that we are being mevatel every single day. To start with Mikdashi Tiro, it's one of the mitzvahs to give covenant yira to the Har Habayit, and the Gemara makes it clear. It's in the pasuk Shav Sosai Tishmaru Mikdashi Tiro, and just like Shabbos is eternal, will never be bottled, neither will the mitzvah of Mikdashi Tiro ever be bottled. And then we look at the Har Habayit, and we see that under the Jewish people, we gave permission to honor Islam with the biggest gold dome in the world. That gold dome was put up in 1992 by King Hussein. He wanted to show his sovereignty over the Har Habayit. So, of course, he had to get permission from the Jewish government, 1992. So the government gave him permission. How do you give permission to honor Islam? Islam's purpose is to remove the Jewish people from the face of the earth, to destroy Torah. How do we honor them? So I said, I must get involved. I must start doing things. And there's, as you mentioned, I have a shir here in Migdal Torah. I began to give shirim in it and classes in it, and began to take boys up and other people up. And when I tell everybody, when you go up, you makayim immediately two mitzvos. One is Mikdashi Tiro. You're showing kavod to Har Habayit by going up exactly as the Rambam says. Number two, you're laying the foundation of bringing Beis HaMikdash and other mitzvahs. These mitzvahs are applicable today. The Rambam points out none of the Tayyad mitzvahs are ever null or void. They're always in effect. So therefore, by going up immediately, you makayim two mitzvahs right away. And the more people that go up, we zocha to do more and more and see more fruits from our work.
What changes have you seen that have occurred in recent years, and how those changes came about?
So I've seen that I started going up about 6-7 years ago, and when we first went up, the restrictions were great. I go up with a group. The police wouldn't even let me lift up my hands. I'm saying, here we're on the Har Habayit. They say I have to put my hand down because the wak was watching us, and they say it looks like I'm praying. They prohibit any action that might look like prayer, and therefore I had to put my hand down. And then I couldn't even shake when I talk. If I shuck a little bit, I had to stop. You couldn't even daven. It was prohibited. I couldn't see any tefillos. People were just like mumbling while they were walking. It was shocking that under Jewish sovereignty that we are enforcing such laws against the Jewish people. How that happened? But little by little, organizations such as Yeshivat Har Habayit and the Kollel Drishat Zion under Rav Weber and Rav Wilson, they kept right up, giving shirim, encouraging people. And anybody I brought up, I tried to introduce them to them and hear Torah from them. And more began to follow up, and little by little, until on Tisha B'Av we did Hishtachavaya. I came on Tisha B'Av and we heard that something's going to be changed, and all of a sudden everyone's doing Shtachavoya. I came with one of my Talmidim. I'll be honest, I thought it was a trick. I said to my Talmud, I bet once we do Shtachavoya, they're going to arrest us, which they did in the past. They would arrest you, give you a Tzav HaChaka or something to that effect. And I look around, everyone's doing it, and I said, that's it, I have to do it. And we all did a Shtachavoya, and that was an amazing change. That now it's Shtachavoya is really part of the avoda. The conclusion of every avoda is with the Shtachavoya. And we would zocha to do Shtachavoya in Har Habayit. That's a major change. And Baruch Hashem, we're going to see more and more changes that Be'ez Hashem will take place.
How can we get more and more Jews to come to Har Habayit?
I believe the way is through education. As I mentioned, I give shirim in particular to my Talmidim in Yeshiva Migdal Torah, and I always tell them, you are the shluchim of the Har Habayit. You have to tell people the false news that they hear, the facts they get are totally incorrect. You hear people saying, it's us to go up to Har Habayit. Fake news. How can it be us? It's a mitzvah. How could it be Asa? It's a mitzvah d'oraisa. As I mentioned, Mikdashi Tiro. How could it be Nissa? They say that you don't know where anything is. Well, that may have been true in the 1920s when Rav Kook Tzatzal was the Rabbi Rashi of Palestine. He had to go under the Waqf, so he didn't know anything was. But today, with all the information that we got from the archaeologists, from other evidence, we know with utmost perfection where we can go. Everyone says, up to the Chel you can go. Everyone says it's a Mishnah, Gemara. My Rebbe, Moshe Feinstein, Zefrenel Kayam Abos, Echatzak Levracha, has in his tshuva. I would go up 2 or 3 times a year with his son-in-law, Rav Tendler Zatzal. He was very much in favor of going up. And then when he came to Eretz Israel, I told his family to let me know when I would go up with him. He told me, sat down with Rav Moshe, and he told him exactly the maslul, the path that he takes. So it's absolutely 100%. Up to the Chayil you can go. Now we know we're not violating this law, we're not crossing the Chayil because we go close to the walls. And the Chayil can never reach the wall. If the Chayil would reach the inside of the eastern wall or the western wall, that's going to mean the rest of the Har Habayit is in the valley. That's a possibility. So we sort of hug the walls, and there's absolutely no possibility that we cross the Chayil. So there's no issue whatsoever. And we're being Mekayim all these mitzvos, and hopefully we'll be zochot to have Korban Pesach Bizman Hazeh. The only thing that's stopping us from being Korbanos, Korban Pesach, is the Jewish people. We never had such a strange, unbelievable phenomenon that's taking place today.
What do you think would cause the hours that Jews can be on Har Habayit to be extended?
I think the more numbers that go up, the more people that talk about it, the more people come aware of it, and the more people will talk to the Chevra Knesset and tell them this is the demand of the Jewish people. This is our heritage. When I take people up, I tell them we're standing just how many meters away from the Akedah, the foundation of Yadus. Foundation Yadus is right here on the Har Habayit. How close we are to the Akedah. We must bring back people, the Avoda, Korbanos, and all the Avoda that we have an obligation to do.
People who daven 3 times a day for Yerushalayim and the Beit Mikdash, what are they thinking?
That's a good question. And in my discussions, wherever I speak, wherever I'm invited to speak on Har Habayit, I mention that point. I say, every Shemon Esrei, you end off, Shibana Beis HaMikdash B'meir V'yameinu. I say, what's in your heart? What do you say, Kadosh Baruch Hu? Shibana Beis HaMikdash B'meir V'yameinu, but don't ask me, Kadosh Baruch Hu. I'm not getting involved. You do it. It's a flaw in your tefillah. It puts a blemish on your tefillah. Do you really mean what you say? Do you really asking for the building of the Beis HaMikdash? HaKadosh Baruch Hu did a great nace for us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, 1967, gave us Har Habayit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, here it is. Good, build it. Build the Beit HaMikdash. Build the Mizbeach. It's in your hands. Unfortunately, we did not. So how do people daven and conclude every Shemon Esrei with the desire to build the Beis HaMikdash if they are doing absolutely nothing to accomplish this goal?
How can a Jew who wants to go on Har Habayit be certain that he's not violating in Visir Kareh?
Because, as I mentioned before, it's clear from the Mishnah down to to the Igros Moshe, even Rav Chaim Kanievsky in his Sefer on Hilchos Beis Bechira, on the Rambam explains, up to the Chel you can go. There's no one which argues on that phenomena. That's a clear-cut phenomena. Up to the Chel you can go. And there's no argument on that. And we know where we are not going near the Chel, so therefore, there's absolutely no issue whatsoever. And I personally think the Yisurim that come about, now, of course, when I mentioned before, Rav Kook, he was in time when it was under the Waqf. The Waqf would make the maslul, would make the path which you took, and no one knew where to go. So Rav Kook didn't want that. But now we know where to go. So therefore, the people that don't go up, I believe it's a fear of a change, a fear of the unknown. They're used to, Klal Yisrael got used to 2,000 years of gullus, got used to shtibel mentality. You're in your shul, you're in your place, and you got used to that type of living, and it's very hard to change. And that's why people have this fear from going up. It's the fear of something new, fear of change. But we have to overcome this fear. We have to realize that now's the time for change. Now's the time to fulfill the mitzvahs. The miracle that Kadosh Baruch Hu returned our Habayit to Klal Yisrael is that we should be able to fulfill the mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs that pertain to the Har Habayit.
The October 7th attack was named by Hamas Al-Aqsa flood. What do our enemies understand that we may be missing?
Islam got its religion from the Jewish people. Islam and Christianity, they stole the basic ideas from the Jewish people, and of course they changed everything around, and they have a fear that the nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu, the nevuah of our Nevi'im, Yecheskel, the nevuah that we will come back and build the Beis HaMikdash is the true nevuah, and they're afraid of that, and they don't want that to happen. They believe in their own false prophets. And that's what they're trying to keep and trying to make sure is being taken place on the Har Habayit. In other words, they want to see Islam on the Har Habayit and not the Jewish people. Once we start davening there, that automatically tells them that our Torah is true. Moshe Rabbeinu's nevuah is true. Klal Yisrael will come back, and their prophets are false. Levi'ei sheker. And that's why for them, this is a very crucial battle to drive the Jews out. And that's why I have two grandchildren who were in the army in Gaza, and they told me every house they go into there's a picture of the Har Habayit. Their drive is to drive the Jewish people out. Their drive is no different than the Romans, than the Greeks, than the Babylonians, to drive the Jewish people out. Our job is to Mekayim the Torah, to fulfill the nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu, and to rebuild the Har Habayit, and to remove any false religion, or any other false ideology. That's our job. The challenge is for us today to take upon the challenge of the Chashmonaim. This is the same challenge the Chashmonaim had. He also had Oivei Avodah Zarah in the Har Habayit. They also had false ideas in the Har Habayit. They took up the challenge and they were successful, and that's why we celebrate Hanukkah. We should be successful. There's no doubt we'll have a big kiyum mitzvah and a big celebration for all of Klal Yisrael.
What's your feeling when you see so many people fighting down by the Western Wall?
It's extremely disappointing, and it gives me a great deal of sorrow and grief. Because what happens is once we start changing the mitzvos, we deviate from the way of the Torah, and we start violating halachos. We're davening at the wall which was built by Herod. Herod wiped out the Hashmonaim. The end of the Hashmonaim came about because of Herod. How is it possible that we're davening at his wall? And people call that wall Kodesh? That's, in simple English, fake news. People went to daven. It was under the Muslims. We couldn't go in the Har Habayit, and with terrible restrictions. So they began to daven at any place that they gave them feeling of remembrance of the Har Habayit. Now we have the Har Habayit. Now we have the place where Shlomo says, this is the place to be mitpalel. This is the place to daven. He says, in particular, at a time of war, here's where you should come, and here's where you should be mitpalel. But the people, because we deviated from the path of the Torah, we find ourselves with a substitute, and a very poor substitute. First of all, we're davening in the wrong direction. Always, Avram, when he was Maspala here, he stood with his back to the sun. He stood on the eastern side. He stood on the eastern side and faced the west. That's why the Gemara talks, Sham Mizrach. That was the place to daven, on Sham Mizrach. Now we're doing just the opposite. We're staying on the western side facing the east. That's total corruption of the position of tefillah. And as I said, we're worshiping a wall that has zero, no kedusha. It was built by one who did terrible tragedy to Klal Yisrael. I believe it was Chaf Sivan, was when Herod died. The Chacham made a big party, a big celebration. So how does his wall come kodesh today? Only because we leave the mitzvahs. Once you leave a mitzvah, you began to be involved with actions that are contrary to the Torah. And the biggest proof is the Chet HaEgel. When Moshe Rabbeinu was gone, for a short time he was late, people began to panic, didn't know what to do, and they built the Chet HaEgel. And I call this gold dome the Chet HaEgel of our generation. We gave permission to build it because we deviated from the Torah, and we came with the idea that if you're kind to the Muslims, they'll be kind to you. Nothing could be further from the truth. These are false ideas. We have to correct ourselves. We have to search for the true ideas. We have to search for the truth. We have to daven where tefillah was made to daven, on the Har Habayit, standing on Sham Mizrach, facing the right direction, and that will be the greatest fuss that Klal Yisrael could have at such a difficult time that as a nation we're facing today.
Thank you, Rabbi Chaim. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.